Reinhold Robbe visited Kunduz base camp in Afghanistan in June. The Parliamentary Armed Forces Commissioner wanted to assess for himself the dangers facing German soldiers stationed there. The Taliban set off a bomb close to the camp soon after his arrival. A prolonged firefight ensued. A 21-year-old German soldier sustained a life-threatening bullet wound, and another an injury to his arm. Later, soldiers told Robbe that it took 15 minutes to bring the two men to safety. The German armed forces have lost 13 men in Kunduz province alone, and conditions have worsened recently. Robbe's job as Parliamentary Commissioner for the Armed Forces is to listen to soldiers' complaints and concerns. Their situation in Afghanistan is certainly not improving.
The
fact is that our people, our soldiers, are involved in tough combat situations on an almost daily basis. It's clear that this needs to be dealt with offensively and unequivocally in Berlin and elsewhere.
By the German defense minister, for example. But Franz Josef Jung is reluctant to use the term war, despite the increase in violence. He argues the soldiers are fighting insurgents and not combatants, and underlines the humanitarian character of the mission.
Wars do not involve building schools, hospitals and kindergartens. We need to win the trust of the people. Unfortunately, we are involved in armed combat in some places, like in Kunduz, and part of our job is helping to create security.
Robbe agrees with the minister in theory, but he says what really happens on the ground in Afghanistan paints a different picture.
Soldiers tell me that there are no wells being drilled or schools being built at the moment. It's war. And when soldiers tell me that, then I have to recognize it.
But the controversy is not only about words, it's also about the consequences. Wildflecken in central Germany is home to an army facility where soldiers receive their final training for tours of duty in Afghanistan. A crucial rule is that they may only use their weapons when coming under fire in self-defense. It's part of their rules of engagement for Afghanistan. Finding and arresting terrorists and actively enforcing peace are explicitly prohibited by these rules. Military experts are critical of this.
Limiting yourself to just reacting puts you at an immediate disadvantage. You have an opponent who does not have an organized army and does not respect any rules of combat. Another reason why we're not allowed to call it a war. And we have to tackle them with one hand tied behind our back.
What we're currently doing is looking at the degree to which these national caveats hamper the actions of our soldiers, how they impede them and limit the active and defensive options available to them.
A video posted on a German army blog shows the difference in approach compared to US forces. A suspected Taliban unit is dealt with even before it reaches the army base in question. But sometimes people are wrongly identified as enemy combatants. The Americans say they've changed their strategy for their new big push against the Taliban, but German commanders are looking for a way to increase their effectiveness without endangering civilians. Soldiers still in training in Wildflecken refuse to debate what needs changing in the Army's mandate on camera, nor will they openly talk about their fears going into their mission, but they do discuss them in private.
Of course, you think about your comrades and talk to your family about everything. These are important issues.
You have to live with it. You can't rule out certain things happening. That's what's new this year, having to talk to your wife about death and injury.
Reinhold Robbe wants soldiers in Afghanistan given greater support from the government and German society. Surveys show that 60% of the population are now opposed to the deployment, But the government remains resolute.
We continue to face difficult and, above all, dangerous challenges. But what I'm also saying is that there are no reasonable alternatives to the objective and strategy of the NATO mission and our humanitarian deployment.
On the same day that funeral ceremonies were held for 3 soldiers killed in Kunduz, the U.S. demanded an increase in German troop numbers in Afghanistan. There is also the fear that in the run-up to the parliamentary elections in Germany in September, the Taliban may intensify their attacks.